Welcome, everybody, to the first Triple B Experience interview of the year. And I am very excited to have this person in the studio to talk about what she's doing and what have she's done in the greatest world of wrestling and podcasting and all that stuff. She is a talent consumer relations of Ultimate Stars Promotions. She's a writer at Pop Break. She's a talent consumer relations at Prime Time Appearances. She's also a member of the Bob Culture podcast. And she is the host of All Things Honor podcast. It's the Triple B's Experience pleasure to welcome Kimmy Sokol to the show. Kimmy, how you doing?
Hi, that was such a wonderful introduction. I was almost blown away. I'm doing so well. Thank you for having me. Very excited to be here and talk about all the things I get to do.
Well, thank you so much. And you told me before we were in the green room that you had already interviews already from yesterday and today. So you are getting to be a hot commodity in the interview world of podcasting.
I am. It was like so weird. Like this other guy like contacted me to do the podcast yesterday and then you contacted me I think the day after and I go, "Oh, I guess my whole January is just going to be me doing interviews with people." But that's okay. That's why we do this. It's fun.
Well, I hope I can give you an experience, and I hope you enjoy yourself being grilled by me because I have some questions, and hopefully I can cut the corners here. So let me get into it. How old are you?
22.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, God bless you. Your genetics. I thought you were a little bit younger, and I knew you were in college, but you do not look like the college age doing all these podcasting shows and appearances and all this stuff. When did you get started doing this?
So, I guess the first thing I did was the convention stuff. So, I'd been going to conventions ever since I was 10, I think, as a fan. Like that was it. Like just going as a fan. And the more you go to them as a fan, you get like close to promoters and certain vendors. And by the time I was a junior in high school, a vendor by the name of Richie, him and I had gotten like really close and he said to me, "I really think that you could work WrestleCon with me up in New York." This was for WrestleCon April 2019. And I was like, "Oh my god, like that's going to be so cool. I've never worked a convention before." But obviously to get to WrestleCon, which is one of the bigger cons of the year, you need some experience and some practice. So I worked an indie show that night with D'Lo Brown. He was the first wrestler I ever worked with. And
The
then
first
leading
one
up to
ever. The first one
first one
ever.
ever was D'Lo
Wow.
Brown.
Okay.
And then I worked so this was like the summer going into my senior year, so this was like June of 2018. So then I worked like smaller conventions and smaller indie shows, and then we made it to WrestleCon New York, and I got to work with Angelina Love, Velvet Sky, and Melina. And so I worked with Richie probably until I graduated high school. Then another promoter by the name of Kevin reached out to me and was like, "Now that you graduated high school, I think I could trust you a little bit." And I was like, "Okay." So I worked 2 conventions with him. I worked with Jordan Grace and Crowbar. And then the
Okay.
pandemic happened. And
Oh
obviously,
gosh.
you can't have a wrestling convention during a pandemic, but don't worry, the wrestling vendor world found a way because then the virtual signings became a thing. And I was just watching them at home, like watching, the vendors either have the talent with them in person or they were doing them through Zoom. And I go, "Oh, that's like a pretty cool experience for like, the vendors to like make money, talent to make money, and just like a fan interaction." Then it was Black Friday of 2020 and I get a call from Richie and he goes, "What are you doing right now?" I said, "Nothing. Why?" And he goes, "I have a virtual signing with Rosa Mendez in an hour. I'll pay you. Like, do you want to do this?" And I was like, "Yeah, I have nothing else to do." And so for the better part of a year, I worked virtual signings almost every week. That's how all of the talent got to know me. That's how all the vendors got to know me. And by the time the pandemic was over and it was November 2021, I was starting to get all these different offers from like different vendors and promoters, and I was like, "You know know what, like, Richie, I think it's time. I gotta see what this door leads me to. And for the past 3 years, I've been kind of the forbidden door of the vendor world, and I've been working with anybody and everybody that'll hire me. And it led me to work with Primetime Appearances, which is one of the top agents in the wrestling world. He has all of like the top AEW talent, like John Moxley, Britt Baker, Orange Cassidy, Renee Paquette, FTR, like all your top stars. And
Okay.
that started at WrestleCon last year with just me reaching out to him, like, hey, I think we could do something with this. And he knew me, I knew him, and he goes, "Okay, like let's see like what you could do on a bigger scale." And it led me to work New York City Comic Con. It led me to StarCast, which led me to do the All Out Media Scrum. So love how things work out
I
for me.
seen that. I seen that. That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Wow. You're
Led
just
so many different.
so but how did you when you were younger, was you always into professional wrestling?
So that started when I was 8. So my dad was a wrestling fan when he was younger, and my grandpa would take him to all the shows at the Garden, all the house shows then. And
Uh-huh.
so my dad had been a fan for years, and we got a flyer in the mail for TNA, the baseball tours that they used to do.
Right.
And my dad was like, "Do you want to go see this?" And I have never in my life up to that point seen wrestling. And I go, "Sure." And little did I know that saying yes to that question would literally change my whole life, because none of this would have ever happened. I would have never gotten into wrestling. I would have never known what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And it it's just so crazy because all my friends now have always known me for being that wrestling kid, and I only have one friend that has known me before wrestling, and he's like, "Yeah, you just didn't know what you wanted yet, and now you do." So everything worked out, thankfully.
Well, even in school, did you get I don't know, it's different than my time, but did people kids kind of say stuff to you because you liked wrestling and you
Oh,
wanted to
of
do that?
course.
And
Yeah. So, like, the thing is, like, in middle school, I was, like, really embarrassed by it because I went to a really big middle school. But by the time I went
Mhm.
to high school, I went to a smaller school. Like, my graduating class was only 100 kids. And that's what everybody knew me as. And my thing was, I was also an athlete. So it was wrestling and track. That was, like, what I was known for.
So that's
And
what
I
you
think,
did? You did track in school and that was the only sport you did?
yes,
Oh,
I did
okay.
track for 6 years. I
Oh,
also won
wow.
most athletic. That was my superlative in high school, making it really big out here, guys. But I didn't care what people said because at the end of the day, like I knew this was it. And I remember like WrestleMania week in 2019 when I was leaving school because I was like, I was going straight from school to do WrestleCon. I remember like the whole hallway was like, "Bye, Kimmy. Have fun at WrestleMania. Bye, Kimmy. Hope Rollins wins the title and like his match against Lesnar." And I'm like, "I taught you all the importance of WrestleMania. I made it. I can retire tomorrow." But the funny thing is, like this past year, I've had so many people like see me from high school. Like, "I'm so proud of you that like you're doing what you always set out to do. It's so amazing to see." And I'm like, "Thank you. So
That's
nice to see
awesome.
the doubters crawl back."
Was there one major doubter? Because everybody has that one guy or girl who's negative in their life, and you just wanted to say, "Ha ha." I've had that happen in my life. Did you ever happen? Has it happened one person in your life that didn't give you the support or said some stuff that they shouldn't have said, and then you just rose above it and just moved on? But you
I mean,
always want to say, "Hey,
the hate's still there. I mean, it's like
really?"
it's the everyday pressures of being Kimmy that like people don't understand because it's like in the media world, I'm kind of like the last man on the totem pole. Like I'm kind of making my way up there. Where in the convention world, I'm already up there, and I have a whole locker room of people that already know me. So I've had people literally tell me the only reason you got your media credentials is because everyone in AEW knows you. But that's not true. I apply the same way everybody else does. I email
Right.
the same people everybody else does. I don't cut corners. It's not like I'm texting Brit, "Hey, can I interview you?" No, I got that Brit interview the same way everybody else did. I applied. I emailed Warner Bros. Discovery. And it's frustrating because I remember like telling Brit that. And Brit was like, "Why would you say that to somebody? Like, I just don't understand it." And I go, "I don't either." And she's like, it's not true. And you have a whole locker room backing you anyway. So don't listen to all these people that are going to tell you that. So at the end of the day, the doubters and the haters aren't going to leave. It's just, hey, you're watching my stuff. I'm clearly doing something that you're watching all of my stuff every single
Right.
day.
Right. So what kind of jobs and duties do you do when you go to these conventions? How do you, get everything situated and who you line up, and that takes a lot of time, and you have to be real diligent on doing that. So can you please give us a little bit into your world of convention appearancing?
So luckily, depending on who I'm working for, the job description is either very long or very short. So when I first started, the only thing I had to do was show up and collect money and take pictures. That was all I had to do. Now I have to worry because Gilbert, that's the guy who runs primetime appearances, he doesn't come to every convention. Like there's cons that I'm by myself with these talent.
Oh,
So
wow.
that's a lot of pressure for a 21-year-old kid. Like Britain
Mhm.
Orange, that store signing in Philly I did was the first one I did by myself ever, and I was so nervous. I'm like, oh my god, like this is my big break, like this has to go smoothly, and thankfully it did. But for something like that where I'm alone, it's, do I have all the pictures, do I have all my 8x10s, do I have change for customers, because you have to have change, do I have a banner so people know where my talent is, do I have hand sanitizer, do I have access to water and snacks, am I able
See, I never
to.
thought of the hand sanitizer. See, that never clicked in for, that never see, because it's new after COVID, but I would have never thought of that.
So you use it for double effect. You could use it obviously for like the real purpose of hand sanitizer, but if you have
Mhm.
a paint pen explode on an autograph, you use the hand sanitizer to wipe it off.
See? I'd have never known that.
So
Wow.
double
Okay.
purpose of the hand sanitizer.
Yeah.
So it's making sure that my talent has everything that they need to succeed, and also like I'm communicating with my talent all the time. Like, do you need a break? Do you want to walk around? Because a lot of times too at these conventions, they want to walk around and see their friends. So when I was working with Anna J, a big event, the Bella Twins are there, and it's no secret she's a huge Bella Twins fan. And I told her, I'm like, hey, when we get a break and like we get free time, I'll make sure you go see the Bellas. And that was a promise I made to her. And she's like, okay. And it was maybe halfway through. And she's like, can you take me over there? I said, yeah. So I walked her over. And, that was something that I did because that was the need for my talent. So
Mhm.
basically, applying needs to talent and making sure they don't get angry.
But when you say you do something, you do it, so they appreciate, that wholeheartedly.
They do. I've had talent tell me I'm very highly respected in that locker room. And that to me is like 8-year-old Kimmy would have never believed that like I would be over in a locker room full of people. Or I've had talent specifically tell me like, if you're at a con I'm working with you, I don't want to work with anybody else.
Wow, see, that's huge right there. So, now, do you have any other, people that you have to, like, well, how should I say this with being politically correct? You have some, people and other ones that are your rivals, say, so you're always competing against, each other for the so-called appearances. Is that a big thing, or it's not so much?
I mean, that's not really my responsibility. That's like,
Okay.
that's everybody else. I mean, there is drama. Like the East Coast vendor scene is the most dramatic thing I've ever seen in my life, and I'm one of the more mature people in it. So usually when the dramatic and the feuds happen, I sit back and I just scroll and I laugh. I pick a side in my head and I'm like, okay, moving on. But yeah, it's so vicious. Like I feel like you have to pick your battles with it because like some people just get so riled up about it, and I'm like, this isn't the end of the world. It's a convention. I get you're
Mhm.
financially involved, but like there's other things in the world that we should be focused on. Relax,
Yeah.
everybody.
But you've had situations that have been, not by your hand, but by other people's hand, in negative aspect of the situation when you go to the conventions? Like, is there one you can remember that was actually just god
I've had someone
awful?
try to ruin my reputation because
How
of it.
so? How so?
Um, I was supposed to work with somebody, and then because of a situation that had happened, I made the choice of like if something fell on my lap, I was going to work with somebody else. And sure enough, like it fell on my lap, and I made that decision. I'm like, hey, I'm going to work for this person, and that
Mhm.
original vendor had gone and complained to somebody else, and that other person was on fake Facebook accounts commenting under all of my posts saying you're never going to
Aw.
get a job, what's wrong with you, you're not loyal, everybody knows about you, you're done in the convention world. Like my dad had to get involved because it was like brutal. And I'm like, you're a 40-year-old man. I was 21 at the time. I'm like, you're picking on a 21-year-old kid. There is no situation where you look like the good guy.
And this person's still in the business because he probably shouldn't be if he acted that way and he didn't get what he wanted
I
and
mean,
he
he's
went to that
really not in it
extreme.
anymore. He's
Well,
kind of
there you
just like,
go.
I mean, I'm sure I will see him again. I've seen him since. He did
Hmm.
apologize, but like he called me as this was going on and I was screaming at him. I'm like, "You have some nerve to call me right now." He's like, "It's not me." I go, "I'm not stupid and I wasn't born yesterday."
Oh my God. That's, I
It was
mean, even though
brutal.
in my life of doing independent stuff, it's a lot of political backstabbing and you have to stand up and you have to get over the negativity and try to be positive. So you were, positive with that situation, but that was the most extraordinary one that you had to deal with so far. And hopefully it could be, hopefully the last, I hope.
I mean, yeah, but there's other situations where like I've had like vendors try to screw my talent over and like try to take advantage of them by having them sign like extra pieces than the original
Sure.
deal where I had to be like, "Buddy, this isn't happening." Like, "I'm sorry, this isn't happening." And they're like, "Why not?" And I'm like, "Cuz I have a text message that says you agreed to 30 pieces, not 75. There's 75 pieces on this table. Let's do math here."
And when you tell them that, they're like, "Thank you, Kimmy. I'm going to take the 30 pieces. I didn't mean I tried to." You know how everybody tries to get a little more
He
in the
tried to
wrestling business.
fight it with me and tried to be like, "Well," and I'm like, "I didn't make the deal. If you want to talk about this, you could call my boss, but I'm going by what my boss told me, and that's 30 pieces, not 75."
So those guys that actually have you representing them know that you're going to stand for the good values and the American way of doing things. Once your word is said, that's how it goes. So that means a lot. That
Ruby
and nowadays people.
Soho was like stunned because she was like, "Oh my god!" Like that's where like she was a talent that said like, "I need you everywhere I go now because you're just gonna yell at everybody for me." And I go, "If you'd like to pass that along to your boss, that would be great, greatly appreciated." And she did,
Well,
so it worked out.
there you go. So how many clients do you have? Do you have a Rolodex because of every convention? There's a convention every weekend, so you have to be busy all the time now, and it's getting to be WrestleMania weekend, so you're going to be busy every weekend until WrestleMania.
Oh, my March is so booked. Well, it depends when like somebody needs me. Like, my first signing of the year is not until February. I'm going to Rhode Island with Trish Stratus. So it's not so much like how many clients like Gilbert or like another vendor has. It's more of like when I'm needed. And since
Hmm.
Gilbert's out in Texas, it's more convenient for me on the East Coast to do stuff on the East Coast for him. So even big
Hmm.
event, he has MJF and Mickey James. I'll be with MJF and Mickey James at big event in March.
Okay. Now, do you just go on the East Coast, or you go in Midwest, or you go, out to the, California when they do conventions, or you just strictly stay on the East Coast?
I travel, so I'll be going. My first big travel job will be Indiana the week before WrestleCon, so that's I think end of March. So it's just again, it's just when somebody needs me. It's more convenient for Gilbert for the East Coast because there's conventions here all the time for no reason
Hmm.
whatsoever. That's why the market's so oversaturated, but that's a different fight for a different day. But if he has told me, he goes, I want you to travel more, so loving my flyer miles that I'm hopefully going to get in 2024. I'm reaching 75,000 flyer miles, so hoping to hit
Wow.
100K this year.
And you're based out of New York?
Yes.
Okay. And your parents are full supportive parents and they support you wholeheartedly, because I know some parents when you got into the wrestling business, they were like, I can just say it for me. My dad was not a real supporter, but I had to deal with it. But your family is pro supportive, and are you your only? You have any brothers and sisters?
No, so I am an only child. My
Okay.
mom, so this was all new to her, and she was someone that had said from like age 8 to probably 17, like, this is a phase. She'll grow out of it. She'll grow out of it. And I'm like,
Is she
I'm not growing out of it. Now she can't say that because she sees like all the hard work is paying off in a
right?
sense.
She
My
wants to
dad,
say it, but then she just smirks and's like, I better not even say it because it's not even gonna.
she's like, it's too late,
Yeah.
right? My dad, he still comes with me to a lot of conventions, so like he will travel, he'll travel with me. So
Okay.
I always joke that like the wrestling life chose me and he's just my add-on. He's also like my manager in a sense where I'll be like,
Okay.
okay, so I'm booked this day and I'm booked that day. And like a lot of times when I'm dealing with like different vendors of like who I'm working with, I'll go to him first. I'll be like, okay, like is this a deal we should make? So he's my mini manager. That's what all the vendors call him. They call him a dadinger.
Well, and also security too. So he's also
Yes,
security.
that's why he says is like the real reason he travels with me because at the end of the day I'm still a 22-year-old female and the wrestling
Well,
business
yeah.
isn't the safest place. And like
No.
that's why I feel like too a lot of people don't say things to me because my dad is there. But like Rhode Island my dad's not going. That'll be a travel job I'm going by myself. Or even Revolution, I'm probably going to get media for Revolution, so I'm going myself to North Carolina.
Okay.
So he's
Okay.
taking a
Well,
step back, but he's still heavily
there.
involved.
Well, and if he doesn't go, you always have connections that you're not pretty much not traveling by yourself. You network and you're going with people, and it seems to me like you're very outgoing and very friendly from what I see in this lovely interview. So people are flocking to you no matter what. So even the boys love you, the girls love you, everybody in the business loves you. So you
Yeah.
always have a friend no matter where you're going.
Yeah, so Rhode Island, I'm going up there with a couple of vendors. I think we're driving up either the day of or the night before, so we're all going together. For North Carolina, because that's where High Spot's headquarter is, like I have people down there that I know are gonna look
Yep.
out for me, and there's a lot of
Right.
media people going there anyway, so nothing bad will happen. Thank God.
Well, what stuff and what obstacles do you got to do to get ready for when you go to these conventions? Now you have to take everything with you, or is everything already there and you just divvy it up and do whatever? So how does a weekend excursion go in a convention for people
So
that don't
I
know?
So Gilbert will usually send me like the pictures. So I'll probably get the pictures of Trish. Like we'll just use Trish for example for Rhode Island. So
Okay.
I'll probably get those pictures at my house Wednesday or Thursday. And so I'll pack those and then I have a money bag where I'll keep like the money so to give to Trish when the thing is over. Then I
Hmm.
have all my markers with me cuz I bring my own. I have my own hand sanitizer. I don't usually sometimes Gilbert will be like I'm sending you a banner. So if that happens, then I gotta bring that. And then I have tablecloth because I feel like if you don't have like it just looks so weird if you're like posing for a picture and the table like doesn't have a tablecloth and plus it's easier to like test the markers on a tablecloth. So I'll bring that.
See,
And
I
so
wouldn't have known that. See, you're giving stuff that people wouldn't know that were if they ever wanted to get in this business, they have to know all these tricks and trade of the trades.
then
I wouldn't know that.
vendoring 101 also because my friend also gives me a checklist. Him and we check things off together and we're like okay we have this, so I'll bring all that with me. Usually the convention itself is responsible for the travel of the talent because usually if I'm working with primetime appearances they're the headliner, so
Hmm.
I just have to make sure like Trish landed okay and Trish knows like she has to be at the convention at a certain time. I'll meet her there and then we'll go through the signing, then I'll give her the money and then we're on our merry way, and then I go home and try to recuperate because convention the sleep after a convention hits so different and no one understands it, but it's because you're on your feet the whole time. Like New York
Right.
Comic Con I was on my feet for 4 straight days. Monday I didn't move off my couch. I was like I'm not moving,
Oh,
staying
who
right
who was
here.
who was the clients that you had at the New York Comic Con? Because I know Comic Cons are huge. Because I'm based in an hour north of. Actually, I am a half hour from Britt Baker's original hometown of Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, Indiana. So I'm an hour north of Pittsburgh, and I do go to the Comic Cons, and I know they're super duper busy now in Steel City Con. So New York is probably triple that. And if there's wrestlers, there's a line from here to Egypt and you got to deal with that. So who did you have at the New York con?
My responsibility, my one and only responsibility was WWE Hall of Famer Mick Foley. So I got to hang out with him for 4 days.
Awesome. And the stories that he could tell you, and he's probably telling you how to save money, and this is how I used to do it, and you
Oh,
know,
so he would come every day with like a pillowcase, right? And like that's all he would bring. This was the most old school thing I've ever seen in my life. So he would have his pillowcase and he'd have like all like so he does like the mankind mask and like the dude
Mhm.
love like sunglasses. So he'd have that in there and he'd have snacks and I would be like, "Oh my god, like this is so like 90s. I've only heard about this life. I've never seen it in person." But yeah, he's so nice. And like I've only heard good things about him. Like Mick Foley's one of those wrestlers where like you never hear a
Oh,
bad thing about him.
no, no, no. I've met him a couple times, and then I did a fully mankind gimmick in Michigan because I kind of had the long hair and I tried to look like him and stuff, but I couldn't get his mannerisms and his voice down. But I had to try it all the way from Pennsylvania to Michigan. But I met him a couple times, and I know he probably did. He have the fanny pack on his
He did.
side?
Yes.
That was a staple back in the late 90s and early 2000s. That's what everybody had, you know. So let me go from the talent stuff to your love of podcasting. How did that become?
So I knew, like, I was sitting in college, right? In my major sports media, I'm the only female that graduated with that in my graduating class. So I knew
Nice.
I had to do,
Congratulations.
thank you. So I knew I had to do something. And during the pandemic, like, everyone had a podcast. Like any single person ever. So I was like,
Yeah.
well, I guess I have to hop on the train here. I guess this will be my start in wrestling media. So the first iteration was called Kimmy Talks Wrestling, and I reviewed everything from Raw, SmackDown, NXT, AEW, the whole shebang. But the problem was I shared a room in college, and my
Oh
roommates
no. Oh
not too fond
no.
of this, right?
Uh-huh.
So I kind of took a break, but Rob from the Bob Culture podcast, he noticed me on the virtual signings and he knew I had a podcast and he was like, "Hey, like I'd be interested to have you on a show." So I was like, "Okay." So then that's how that happened. And I realized like I'm still good at podcasting and when I graduated or like my senior year, I had my own room and I'm like, "Okay, like I could do this again because I have my own space."
Because you don't have your roommates like, hey, knock it down, Kimmy. We're trying to get some sleep. And
Oh, I still did. They'd be
okay.
like banging on the wall, and I'd be like, "What do you want me to do?" Like junior year, I would go anytime I did a BCP episode, I would go to a classroom and sit in a classroom at 10 o'clock at night and podcast.
But see, to me, wouldn't they just try to help you and it's like, hey, look, you know, what I mean, sacrifice whatever and see what you're doing and don't be a negative part of that aspect. And they know what you're trying to do. And if it goes viral, it could be super huge. Wouldn't they
They
just?
they didn't care.
Oh, okay.
They're
See,
like,
that's
"You're
that's
bothering us."
that's terrible. That I
I know.
mean,
It
I
sucked. It was
mean,
very frustrating as a wrestling content creator. It was the most
yeah.
frustrating period of my life. So when I had my own room, I'm like, okay, like I could kind of still do stuff. And I've always loved Ring of Honor. It was the second wrestling company I ever started watching. It's also the only wrestling company that is the same age as me. And I was like, it is. It's we're both
I
22 years old.
I'm not saying anything. I'm not disagreeing with you.
So I was like, I still want to cover Ring of Honor. So I was like, why not? I'm like, I'll just do my own podcast. I'll call it All Things to Honor and I'll record a new episode every week. And so that's how that started. And, I just do podcasts anytime someone's like, hey, you want to do this? And I'm like, sure, I have nothing else to do.
Well, now what's your things to tell people to get into sports podcasting from your experiences that you can give them in a positive outlook?
I would definitely say like I'm a very like I knew I was always meant to be like a voice in wrestling because I'm a very opinionated person. I've always been a very
Ooh,
opinionated
that
person.
could be that could be bad or good though.
It's usually really like if you know me personally, it's usually really bad. Like my friend a couple
Okay.
weeks ago was like telling me this story and she wanted my opinion on it and she was like, "What if I did this?" And I go, "That's really mean." And that's coming from me saying that's really mean. She goes, "That's a good point. I shouldn't do that if you're saying it's mean." And I go, "Exactly." So you got to take a step down. You got to do this instead. Anyway, so I would definitely say like if you're a very opinionated person like me, like don't be scared of like using your voice for a good reason. Like Maria Kanellis always told me that you have a voice for a reason. Use it in a positive way. And I'd also say too, like, it's frustrating at first because no one knows who you are and you have to build your own platform. So just keep going at it and then eventually you'll get your fan base. I've been fortunate enough to have my fan base come from many different forms of it because it's the people that know me from the convention scene, it's people that know me from the BCP, it's people that know me from Kimmy Talks Wrestling. It's people that know me in real life. So I've had my fan base come from many different sources. So just keep going at it, I would say.
And what they see is what they get with you then, because it's coming from me too. Like people see what they get. I'm as real as I can be. But I try to do whatever, and I try to broaden my horizons and try my experiences. So you have a lot of people that are following you in all these different genres. Now, the one genre, have you ever tried to do anything into the shows, inside the ring? Have you done any of that? Like maybe color commentate,
Yes, I
maybe
commentate for.
manage.
So I commentate for Warriors of Wrestling. That's the other thing I forgot to tell you.
Oh,
I
okay. I
commentate for
didn't.
Warriors.
Oh, I didn't add that in. Darn.
No, it's okay. It's okay. So I commentate for Warriors Wrestling. That's my local independent scene. I also do a lot of their PR work. So any time monthly that they have like a press release, I write that. I just wrote the one
Okay.
today for the February show, and the past show in January that I actually got sick at because the owner decided to come to the show. It flew A, and then gave everybody else flu A.
Oh no.
Yeah, so I just got over flu A. So
Now
yay.
that's based out of New York.
Yeah, so it's based out of Staten Island.
Okay. And what's would their roster look like?
So our champion is Darius Carter. It's mostly just like local independent stars, like local from like New York, New Jersey,
Sure.
Connecticut.
Where
But
people get their start though. They get their start there and they go that to the big
yes,
time.
but also too, like I interviewed Darius in the ring, a, 2 weeks ago. Like that was my big. Like I went in the ring. We had a. He was very angry because I got cheered and I like people were chanting my name. I was very over with the crowd and everyone was
Mm-hmm.
booing him. He was not very happy that the correspondent got cheered. So him and I had like a moment where we like stared off. And I was like, "What are you gonna
Oh.
do, buddy?" Like, come
So
on.
is there a thing where you might have maybe in some part later on down the road this year where he is not happy with the situation that just transpired, have you, have somebody gallantly defend your honor in a type of show here where you're going to be managing somebody? Maybe is that
I'd
something that could
laugh.
happen?
That'd be fun. Um, I've never really looked at it that way because the thing is too like I do commentary, so I feel like jumping from point A to point B to point C, like that's a lot, and I consider myself a very good multitasker, but that's even too much for me. But I will say, like, I like what I do because even like the talent are now coming to me. They're like, "Hey, can we do this?" Or "Hey, can I steal you? Can we do this backstage thing?" So I have talent that back me up. I clearly have an owner that backs me up. So I'm glad to be surrounded in a business with really shitty people. Very glad to have people that have my back.
Why would you say that? Why would
It's
you
so
say that?
true because I hear it all the time.
I
Like
know.
the
I couldn't believe you said it, and I just wanted to elaborate a little more.
Like the biggest thing I've heard from like Gail Kim, I've known her since I was probably 13 years old. This is how far back me and Gail Kim go. And she's told me since I was 13, she goes, never get into this business. You're too nice. It's gonna corrupt you. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. So I saw her after the pandemic where I was very much in the business. And she's like, you didn't listen to me. I go, I didn't. But let's look at it this way. Look at all the things I get to do. She goes, that's very cool, but still, like, really? I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. So that's our inside joke now is I don't listen to her and I just like do my own thing.
Because it's like it's worse than the mafia. Professional wrestling business is worse than the mafia because if you try to get out, they pull you back in.
100% all the time.
Yeah, and you're being young, and you're just got a couple years under your belt. When you got 15 or 20, it gets catastrophic because even for me, I'm 20 years and I'm trying to get out, and they pull me back in because I'm just mailing I don't know why I'm doing this, but I'm mailing my promoter's license again out, which is the craziest thing in the world to do again. But I don't know. It's something that you love. When you love professional wrestling, it never goes away, correct? It just never ever.
No.
And you're young, it's just never. And coming from me, being an old guy, it just never ever goes away. So with you, you are well respected. Everybody seems to love you based on who you are and how you treat people, and that will take you a long way in any type of business, especially this business.
That's why I like joke all the time. Like I haven't hit my prime yet. And like that's so weird to say cuz I've done so much.
Right.
But the best is yet to come. And I'm kind of intrigued to see what that next level is. Like what's next?
Well, I mean, because I follow you on social media, and that's why I wanted to interview you, because your experiences, you're doing stuff almost every other weekend. You got your shows, your podcasting shows, you're going to conventions, you're doing stuff that everybody dreams of, but you're doing it, and being a female while you're doing it is probably harder than being a male doing it. So, and you
Yeah.
probably got to deal with a lot of stuff being a female in this industry.
Oh, college was the worst. My advisor. So I'll say this, like when I was in college, I've had more people disrespect me for the sport I chose rather than me being a female, which is so weird
Mm,
to say that I got more hate for wrestling than being a girl. However, that was something I really had to prove because everyone in so my department was very tiny. There was maybe like 15 to 20 of us. And I had to prove that, like, you know what? Everyone else could be doing football and hockey and basketball, but I'm going to show you why wrestling matters. And all of my stuff backed it up. Like when I did that interview with Brandon Adam, I remember like Fightful quoted it. And there was all these like top wrestling media sites that were quoting my article. And I emailed my advisor and I told him, I'm like, look, look, my article's like going somewhere. Like this is really a big deal. And he goes, "That's never happened in the history of this program before." And I can't believe it's happening because of something like wrestling. And I go, "Yeah, because this was a big deal."
you made him eat his words.
Sorry.
You made him eat his words, didn't you?
I've done that for all 4 years I was at that institution. And you know what? Here I am.
Yeah, and God bless you for that, because a lot of people, you have to take a lot of slack getting into this industry to begin with, because everybody has a lot of negative anecdotes about professional wrestling, and being a female and loving wrestling and doing what you're doing, you're going to hear a lot of BS about the negativity of professional wrestling. Blah blah blah. To me, it's the best form of and you have to be in shape, but it is the best sport and entertaining wise going today. So, I mean,
I mean, my whole thing has always been to like I've seen so many people like leave and like get out of my life for whatever the reason was. Like whether it be
mhm,
like it needed to happen, whether I didn't want it to happen, whatever the case may be. But wrestling never left. Wrestling always stayed. Like wrestling was there when my dad had cancer. Wrestling was there when my dad lost his job. Wrestling was there when my grandma died. Like wrestling was there through every single hardship of my life,
mhm.
but all those people left, but this stayed. And I always attribute the promo that Daniel Bryan cut, and I called him Daniel Bryan because this was in WWE, where he came back from his retirement and he said, you know, if you fight for your dreams will fight for you. And I fought for so many things in my life. I fought for friendships, I fought for a track career, and those things didn't fight back for me. It didn't work out. For whatever the reason may be, it didn't work out. But I fought for 13 years for wrestling, and 13 years later, wrestling's fighting back for me, and I've seen it lead me to travel the world. I've been able to work with top talent. I have a whole locker room of people that respect me. I've been able to sit on Media Scrum to be the youngest person in that room and show, hey, I'm just as smart as you who's been doing this for as long as I've been alive, and I can hold my own in this room. That's why,
Mm.
like WrestleMania media credentials, I applied last year. I didn't get them. This year, it's a possibility that I am going to get them because I didn't give up. I didn't listen to any single person that told me that this was a phase, that I was never going to be successful. There was no money in wrestling. I never listened to any of that because this was it. And if you left the journey, you left because you didn't see it. The people that are still here,
Wow.
they saw it. They saw
I
the end
I
goal.
I love your perspective, and being and from once again an older guy to a younger person, who's your perspective is awesome. Your drive and your intuitive nature is very very good. Um, and I'm not here to kiss anybody's ass. I'm just saying I just see that because you bust yours in everything you do with your social media and stuff like that. And you have the naysayers. You proved all the naysayers wrong, and you're still going. Now, how does it get into? How do you get into the media? Because I believe I seen a one of the events. I think I did see you on, or your name was on, or I just heard your voice, or something like that. How did you get into that? And you have to be very quick on what question you want to ask. Correct?
Yeah, so basically, so I've been writing with Bill now. That's the editor in chief for the Pop Break. That guy has literally like been the best mentor ever. I complain to that guy every day about something new, and I don't know why he's still here, but he still is. So I guess I'm doing something right. So I remember saying to him, I think like last year, I'm like, why don't we try to go on these scrums? Like we get the email from AEW. Like, why don't we just try it? And he's like, okay. So I applied for Supercard of Honor in LA and I didn't get
Mhm.
it. And I'm like, okay, we'll try next time. Death Before Dishonor, I got it. And I remember I was like, oh my God, like, I don't know what to do. Why did I get this? And I'm sitting in this room with like people like John Alba, who's probably been doing this for as long as I've been alive. And I'm like, I shouldn't be in this room. I don't know what I'm doing. And like Athena's there. I've known Athena since 2022. I do belong in this room. Athena and I are friends. And it's like, okay. So I think like the strategy for like my questions too is like I kind of have a gist of like in my head, I know who's gonna be there. Like I Athena was in a high key match. I knew I wanted to ask her a question. But I
Mhm.
also, because there was four people you could have talked to, because first was Claudio. I was way too nervous to talk to Claudio. I'm like, I'll observe how this works. Then it was Shibata, and I was like, Shibata. I was like, okay, I have to ask Athena. I interviewed her earlier in the week. Boom. Okay. And of course, like if you have the opportunity to talk to Tony Khan, you gotta talk to Tony Khan, right? He just happens to
Right.
be there. And like he stares into your soul, and it's like the most scariest experience of your life. Cause he's just staring at you and staring at you. And I'm like, I don't know whether to look at you, look the other way.
Is he
So
is he intimidating? Because I don't see him being
I
intimidating like
mean,
Vince.
to be fair, again, I'm a 22-year-old child in
Okay.
these things, so everyone's into like Athena. I'm not intimidated by because she knows
Okay.
me. Tony Khan doesn't know me
Gotcha.
from a hole in the wall. Like that's why, or even like All Out in Chicago. Like I was freaking myself out because that was my first big AEW pay per view. Adam Cole. I'm like, bro, I worked with you yesterday. I know you. And sure enough, like I was his first question. His face lit up. He's like, "Hi, you." And I'm like, and it's
I think
so
I
funny.
seen I think I seen that. Yeah.
And that's so funny because for Adam, I'm this was a Brit request. I have to call him by his real name. So when I was on the scrum, I almost said his real name and not Adam because I'm so used to calling him by the other name that I like
Mhm.
stuttered. I was like, "Hi, Adam." And I'm like, it's Adam here. It's not Austin. Don't call him Austin. Because can you imagine if I said Austin? Tony Khan would have been like, who is this kid calling him by his real name? And I would have been like, I am so
Or he would have
sorry.
booked you into something. He would have booked you into something that could have made it something big though. Because knowing him, I don't know. I don't know. I don't understand him when he's doing AEW. Maybe I'm going to ask you this. AEW when it first started was so super. Now it
Yes.
seems like it's spinning its wheels just a little bit. Do you think so? I mean, you don't have to comment because you're in that. I'm pretty opinionated on my podcast, so I don't want to get you any
No,
heat with anybody. I just
I think the thing is he has too many people on his roster and he doesn't know what to do with all these people. Like
okay.
at the end of the day, he only has 5 hours of TV and that's not including Ring of Honor. And he has
Mhm.
over, I think, like it has to be between like 75 and 90 people on his roster that he
Yeah,
has to
it's a
find
lot.
5 hours of TV every single week to make sure everybody gets used. And I feel like he struggles with that, which is why, like, how many times have we seen Tony Storm versus Sky Blue?
A lot. A lot.
And I love Sky Blue and I love
And
Tony.
but I love Tony Storm's gimmick. I love the
Oh, so do
gimmick
I.
because they can make that's the first one they ever made where the gimmick in AEW is just so awesome because everything else just was going by it wasn't working sometimes.
No, I
So,
agree. Tony, like, I cannot wait. She has not done a convention since that gimmick has been a thing. And I cannot wait till she does her first one because I'm gonna try to finagle my way to work with her because she's under my agency. And I'm just gonna
oh
be like,
nice.
here I am. Let's go. I'm
Yeah.
timeless too.
Because I just seen TNA just did it with Dana Brooke and just rehashed it. I was like, oh my
Oh,
god.
that was so bad. The name is horrible, and I have
Yes.
people in that company. That name was trash. I was like, really? You could? There was so many things you could have done.
Yes. I don't know why people in the maybe I can ask you, why do they have to just can't they do their own stuff? And why do they got to copy everything? Just do your own stuff and be inventive and creative that way in some kind of wrestling company. Why does everybody got to copy stuff? It just doesn't work all the time.
I don't know. I don't think it's gonna
Okay.
work with her, to be honest, either. I feel like, I liked her powerful gimmick in NXT and like the
Mhm.
beginning of her WWE career. I thought that was really good. And I liked when she
Mhm.
was with Charlotte. I thought that was like the peak Dana Brooke. And I do think she's very talented. Like if
I
she
do
was gonna
too.
go anywhere, TNA is the place for her to thrive. Similar to like how Trinity went there. Like we actually got to see that she could wrestle. Because I know
Mhm.
that there was a lot of doubts when she left WWE, but the gimmick's not it. Like, come on. Come on,
Yeah, just
people.
yeah, I don't know. And now we're getting into the Rumble is in a couple weeks, and it's that WrestleMania time. Like now is the hottest time for wrestling. It's just the way it is.
It's the
So let me.
best time.
I love it. I love it. But let me ask you before we get out of here, who do you think? Because it's going to be hard to con. Who do you think is going to win the Rumble, guy and girl, in the Rumble match?
I think CM Punk has to win the guys. I feel like, if it doesn't, okay, so like the other thing is too is like Seth Rollins reportedly got injured last night on Raw, and we don't know what his injury status is. We're supposed to
Hmm.
find out like Wednesday or Thursday. So if Rollins is okay, that has to be the match, right? And then Punk's gonna like they're gonna main event night one. They're gonna get like Punk's finally gonna get his like moment. So Punk
Hmm.
has to win the Rumble. And I get like people are gonna be like, oh, Cody Rhodes didn't finish the story. Elimination Chamber will be his time, okay? He'll win in front of like 60,000 people in Australia to get his match at Roman Reigns. Whoopie do. For the girls, I think because if you go on Twitter every single day is about finishing the story. I'm like,
I
guys,
know.
I get it. I don't care. Cody, he's gonna do it. They're not gonna let him like. He's not going to leave without finishing the story.
Right. Right.
For the girls, I feel like they're. I want to say Bailey. See, after last night with the promo with Rhea and Becky, but I feel like having Becky win the Rumble, I just feel like there's something more in Bailey winning it, especially if they're gonna keep the title on Io and have the Bailey Io match. And
Hmm.
what sucks is I'm going on the Jericho cruise next week. So I can't
Nice.
even watch the Rumble. So I won't know what
Oh,
happens. So the Rumble's on Saturday. I won't know till Monday or like Tuesday what happens because
you
I don't have
can't. You can't.
service.
Oh no.
So I
I'm sure
won't
somebody.
know
I'm sure
unless
somebody's got to
somebody
have
like
something.
iMessage text me what happens.
One of the boys, somebody in the business is going to watch it. I mean, they're gonna have a couple cocktails and they're going to be watching it. So maybe they could have like a Rumble party on the cruise.
So many people were like asking about that. They're like, "Are you going to show the Rumble?" And then the people were like, "No." And everyone's like, "Well, there's so much to do on the cruise. Why are you just focused on the Royal Rumble?" I'm like, "Cuz the Royal Rumble is one of the best events of the year. Like who would
Yes.
want to miss the Royal Rumble?"
Yeah.
I'm
Because
sure
you
my
got.
dad will keep me very informed of it cuz he's not coming with me on the cruise. So I'm sure he will text me every update that I need to know.
Oh well, I think you get Peacock. It's very economically sound Peacock, and then I don't know where the cruise is. Maybe international waters. Maybe you can't get it. I don't know.
Mexico? Do they have
Uh,
Peacock in Mexico? I don't
I'm
know.
sure. Well, if you got Peacock, it probably goes international.
That's what I'm
You
thinking.
know.
I gotta like research. I'm sure if I
Yeah.
did enough research, I could somehow
Yeah.
find a way for us to
Because
get
I
it.
I have I have my cable system. I can watch stuff from Japan. So I mean, it all depends. So hey, before we get out of here, I have 5 questions for you. Hopefully you can answer them. If you don't want
I
to, that's
hope
okay
so.
too. I think you can.
Okay.
Um, what is your favorite movie of all time?
School of Rock.
Oh, okay. That was without any hesitation.
Well,
All
the problem
right.
is like I have a really horrible attention span, which is also why I don't understand why I like wrestling because I could sit for 3 hours and watch like Raw, but if you put me like 3 hours to watch a movie, it's the most impossible thing. I can't do it. But School of Rock, like Jack Black, it's just so good, masterpiece, 10 out of 10.
Okay. I would have never thought that was coming, but it's a good comedy, and I think you're the only one that actually said a comedy, and every time I've asked that question. So
Or
I'll
Air,
never
the
forget it.
movie about
Jordan.
Jordans. Yeah,
Okay.
Air was also really good because I'm a huge sneaker person and I love my Jordans, so Air was also really good.
Okay. Okay. Now this is a 3-part question.
God.
Who I know. Who is your favorite male wrestler of all time?
Seth Rollins,
Okay, that was with no hesitation. Who is your favorite female wrestler of all time?
Gail Kim.
Okay. This is the last one. Who is your favorite tag team of all time?
Ooh, no, not Edge Christian. FTR.
Okay.
Or the Briscoes. Either one.
Okay. Well, okay. And they're both great. I think FTR is like ranked in my top 5. Oh, totally. Not my number 1 is old school, way old school. So, and they no longer. I mean, they were the greatest tag team of all time. They were the Legion of Doom. So what can I say?
Oh.
That's why I'm old school. Old school. You know.
But I know who they are, you know.
Yes.
I've met
And
Paul
that's awesome
Ellering.
because yes, and a lot of people don't know who they are. So
You're right, they don't, and
yeah,
that's so
yeah.
upsetting. I actually had to explain to a wrestling vendor about the Von Erich family and the Iron Claw because they didn't know that that was like yes, a wrestling promoter. I was
Then
like,
he's not a good promoter. If you don't know the old school, if you don't know what happened 20 years ago, you don't happen 10, and you don't have any idea what's going on now, you should not be in the business of anything. That's
you
just
had to
my
see my
opinion.
face when I received the text. I was like,
I
"What?"
bet it was just like my face when you told me that.
Yep,
Yeah. Okay.
very
What yes. What one thing you want to accomplish in your field? What major thing do you want to accomplish in your field?
I wanna be signed to a wrestling company full time.
Okay. Where do you see yourself in 5 years, Kimmy?
5 years? Ooh, so
Yeah.
I'll be so, like, 5 years from today or, like, 5 years from
5 years from 2024, which would be 2029.
so I'll be 28. Oh my god.
Oh God.
28.
I'll
So
be
I hope by the time I'm 28, I hope that I am signed to AEW. I hope that I have moved out of New York and either gone to North Carolina or Florida because those are my 2 top places to live.
okay.
I hope that I had been able because I've always said like I wanted to build my forever home. Like I just want to like take a piece of like land and be like, this is where I'm never moving after this. So I hope that if the house isn't built yet, it's in like the process of being built. And I hope that I've been able to say like a lot of the things I've wanted to do. I hope that I'm able to say that I did it. Like I hope I'm able to say like I covered WrestleMania for press.
Well, what about if WWE wants to get a hold of you for a job and
Oh, I'll
AEW
go to
hasn't?
WWE in a
Okay.
heartbeat.
Okay. I just
AEW
think
just seems a little bit more realistic at the moment.
okay. I mean,
But if
whoever
I had
gets
to
to
pick
Kimmy
one,
first is where Kimmy's going.
yes, whoever's gonna like reach out to me first, I'm gonna go to you. But you know, like I said, I have a lot more friends in AEW. It's just convenience wise, probably over there.
Okay. Okay. There's nothing wrong with that. One word that describes Kimmy Sokol. You can have 2 words. You can come with 3.
um, determined.
I can see that. That's good. I can see that. I can definitely see that. So, Kimmy, before we go, how can people get a hold of you if they want to watch your podcast or maybe see you at a convention or whatever? The platform is all yours, Kimmy.
So you could follow me on Kimmy_Sokol. It's literally spelled the same way it is in this little name thing right here. So you can follow me on Twitter there, and I always post like my articles. I post my podcast. Usually like a week before, I'll post like convention wise where I'm gonna be. I don't try to promote every day about conventions because you know that's a lot of work that I don't get paid enough money to do. You can follow me on Instagram at Kimmy.Sokol because I guess like I forgot that underscores existed when I like did Instagram. So it's different username. But yeah, like if you follow my Instagram too, like it's a lot more like personal stuff. Like there's a bunch of wrestling stuff and like 5 personal photos. Big deals. So you can follow me there. You could go on YouTube and just type all things honor. You can find my podcast there. You can go on the pop break and just like literally search Kimmy Sokol and all my articles will pop up. There's a lot of shit there. So you could pick and choose which ones you want to venture in. And yeah, I think that's about it. Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of
No, no, thank you, Kimmy. It was an honor to have you. I know you're so busy. I know your schedule is so overwhelming, and I'm glad you got to be on the show first of the year. You're my first one of 2024, and it was awesome. And I appreciate you so much. And anything you have that you want me to share to the masses, I will help you out. Share stuff. I usually do that to anybody that's going to come on the show. I try to do that. I'm just a team player, and that's just the way I like to be for the rest of my life. You know, being a team player is good. So anything you got, I'll share. And I appreciate you coming on tonight. So Thank you so much, and I wish you all the best. And maybe I'll get to see you at the next media. Hear your name in the media scrum for AEW.
Hopefully, hoping for Revolution. I haven't gotten an email yet, but I was told that I'm probably getting
You
in.
will.
So
You will. Determination is one word you have. And
yes.
everybody, this is Kimmy Sokol, podcaster, talent relations coordinator, a jack of all trades, and she is going higher and higher in the pro wrestling world. Thank you, Kimmy. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming on, and everybody, thanks for tuning in. It was an awesome show. Thank you, everybody, and good night.